everyone, this is Courtney Roland from Aggie Yell and the F Word Meaning Football podcast. This week we have some great guests on the podcast. We talk about Texas A&M's win over LSU, and then what is going on with the football team, the coaching staff, the players entering the portal, and then also, are there potential players that could be in the NFL draft and declare early? We find out. Hey everyone, this is Courtney Roland here with the F Word Meaning Football podcast. Jamie McCoy joining us. Jamie, I'm sitting in my car because I just left the gym, but I'm so happy you can join us. Aggies finished the season with a win over LSU. What were your thoughts from that game? I mean, I know at halftime we spoke and you said that Aggies were going to have to make adjustments and prepare for LSU's adjustments, and apparently they did.
My thoughts were it was just great to see us finish after a season of turmoil and starting out the game well and then not ending so well. It was great to see us finally put our foot on somebody's neck and bring it home. I like the adjustments that we made. I love that we didn't get taken out of our run game with Chain having such a good night. And then I love seeing oh my gosh. I love seeing Wigman make what I would consider some big time throws, especially coming from a freshman. Moose Muhammad made some amazing catches. It was just as an Aggie. Yeah, as an Aggie with the season that we've been having, it was great to see us actually go out there and beat a good team and perform the way that we know that we have the talent to perform.
What do you think took so long? Like, why the last game of the season do we all of a sudden see this?
I think it had something to do with knowing that there's nothing left coming after this, and this isn't the taste that we want to leave in not only the fans' mouth, but I guess the players themselves. I know that they didn't want to be remembered for not doing anything of note for the season. So I think it was a little bit of pride deal, and then there's a little extra salt on it when it comes to LSU, just because I don't necessarily consider them a rival the way that I would Texas, but with us coming over to the SEC and it being 10 plus years now, I think that they're as close as what we can have to a rival. They hate us as much as we hate them, so it's good. I think that added a little oomph to it.
Yeah. So it didn't take long after the game for movements to already start happening along the coaching staff. Daryl Dickey was released at A&M, and before the season he had been moved around some. So I don't believe Daryl Dickey had very much to input into the play calling. So what are your thoughts there? I mean, was that a significant move if he had nothing to do with the play calling?
I can't say how much significance there was to it because, like you said, I feel like Jimbo was the actual play caller. If anything, I'd say Daryl Dickey might be responsible for the offensive philosophy. I guess the whole grasping of the concepts from the offense. But as we got to see this year, whether it was too complex or whatever the case may be, that we weren't getting the results that we needed. We needed everything simplified. And it seemed as though in that LSU game, things were simple. It was run a slant, get open, catch the ball. Outside of that, we've been doing too much thinking and too
hand it to A-Chain.
Oh yeah, hand it off, hand off right, hand off left, toss right, toss left. But no, I think it's more of a philosophy thing with him because I know that Jimbo was still calling the plays. Now the question is, when they bring in the new guy or whoever it is that they're able to get, is Jimbo going to allow him to put his stamp on it and put his personality into this offense and actually call the plays? I think it would behoove Jimbo to hand over those reins and just kind of delegate as a head coach. Go when the offense on the field, go talk to the defense. So vice versa, when defense is on the field, talk to the offense, and just have more of a sense of the game day environment instead of having to. Because calling plays it's a big job. not only are you worried about what's coming up, what am I going to do on third down, but when they come off the field, you're thinking, what are we doing? What worked? What didn't work? It's just a lot. Just take that off your plate, Jimbo, and be a good coach and go and recruit well. Everything else will handle itself.
I'm no coach or anything, but I was a guest coach one time for the maroon and white game, and I did call one play, and it did work out, but that was stressful enough. Just one play in a scrimmage.
Oh yeah, yeah. So you get it. You feel where I'm coming from.
Coach Courtney.
Yeah.
So let's talk about A-Chain and Naismith. What do you think? Do you think they come back a year? I know Anais was still, using that little roller thing for his leg at the game on Saturday night. Obviously, A-Chain came back in full force and had a great game. What do you think? You think it behooves him to come back or head on?
I think so. I think when you think back to the Aggies that have left early or come back, I think you got way more horror stories for the guys that leave early. I mean, I could thinking back to my years, I could name you 5, 10 people who had all the talent in the world, really had all the opportunity in the world, but for whatever reason, I don't know if it's agent, family members, cousins, who knows, maybe even friends, but some people are giving these guys advice to go ahead and leave, and I just don't necessarily agree. If you're an Anthony Johnson and they're projecting that you're going in the first round,
Right.
by all means, take off, go, because you obviously got the talent. And you don't want to do anything to jeopardize that. But Anais, for one, is coming off of an injury. I think it serves him well to. I feel like he's going in there with his stock low. Teams know what he can do. They know what he's capable of, but he didn't play the last half of the season. He's probably not going to be able to test during, not the combine and the pro day.
Right.
So he's not doing himself any favors. You're just going off the merit of what you've done. When you could come back, have a great season along with the great team who's has to do nothing but go up coming off of the season we just had.
Right.
And I think it takes him from a 4th, 5th, 6th round pick to 2nd, 3rd round pick, maybe even the first. Now with A-Chain, you think about the running backs who are doing well in the NFL right now. Sorry there. You think about the running backs that are doing well in the NFL right now. It's getting colder. You got your Nick Chubbs, your Derrick Henrys. I think this really hadn't been a passing year. Kamara's not, this isn't a passing back. Not that A-Chain is a passing down back. He clearly showed that he can rush the ball, but at that NFL level, it's grown men out there, and they're huge, and they hit hard, and they come every play with it. So I think right now his size doesn't serve him the best. Not that he couldn't go in there and get it done. Obviously he could, but again, why not come back just 10 pounds heavier, a little stronger, better pass blocking? Again, you have a good team. I think if A-Chain comes back or if all of them, Damani, all of the ones that are able, and we have a good season, I think he becomes a 1st round pick, if not even a Heisman finalist. If he can just put up those 100-yard, if he can have 100-yard, which is nothing for him. If he could have a 100-yard game every week, week in, week out, I see no reason he's not a Heisman finalist. So I think it serves both of them well to come back. I understand if they got to go just because they're both good enough, and I know they're going to get drafted, but come back. I mean, Vaughn came back and he became the number 2 pick. Myles Garrett stayed. He became the number 1 pick.
Amen. That's true.
There's nothing wrong with coming back, getting your degree. Even if you don't finish your degree, you're getting at least another 12, 15 hours towards it, which is more than a lot can say. I know a lot of guys go, and 4 or 5 years down the road, you're not trying to come back and go back to school. Just knock it out now and have fun with your boys and live it up and have a good year.
Yeah, those are all really good points. I never thought about it, the way that you explained it with, the running backs and how they're doing in the NFL right now. And then I guess NIL changes everything too. So if, the guys are trying to leave early for money and to, get that paycheck, NIL, you can get it right where you are and get better for another year.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I appreciate it, Jamie. You getting ready for Christmas? December 1st here. Christmas tree up.
Christmas tree is up.
All right. Look at that.
We
Looks
got some
good.
stockings over here. Got some football on the tube.
All right.
We're in the spirit.
There we go. I love it. I love it. Well, I have to go home and work on my Christmas tree. So next up on the podcast, we hear from legendary Hall of Fame NFL football writer John McClain, who now you can catch on gallerysports.com. But John talks to us about Devon Achane and Anais Smith and the potential of them declaring early.
Good morning, everyone. And we have John McClain, legendary NFL writer. Now you can find him on gallerysports.com, where everything is best coverage by John. John, just wanted to touch base with you real quick about Texas A&M. Obviously not the best season, but they did end with a win against LSU, and Devon Achane was able to play for the Aggies and had a great game. Devon and Anais Smith. Anais has been out this past season. What do you think their NFL future looks like?
Because the Texans are so bad, I've been focused on the draft, and that's every player. And I think Achane went out in style with that 215-yard performance. I think he's another Alvin Kamara. That's the comparisons that NFL scouts make about him. And he's undersized at 5'9", 185, but he's proved he's tough. And his speed and quickness and his ability to catch are going to set him apart from some of the other prospects. Bijan Robinson's the best prospect at running back, but I could see Achane, if he has a great offseason at the Combine, Aggie's Pro Day, and private workouts, he could bump himself up into the second round. And I think any team would love to have him on their roster because he's a threat to go all the way anytime he touches the ball.
Would there be what are the pluses or, I guess, the negatives if he were to stay another season at A&M?
He runs the risk of having another bad season. Jimbo Fisher, there's no reason people are going to say, well, they're going to be a top 5 team after the way they played. Who's going to be the offensive coordinator and play caller? Will Jimbo give up those play calls? And you always have to look at injuries. Anais Smith being a good example of that with his injury. And so to me, if you have a really good season and you are a highly rated prospect at running back, why stay in college and have the wear and tear on your body when you can get that wear and tear for big money in the NFL instead of staying for an NIL?
Right. Makes sense. Now, Anais Smith, on the other hand, everyone knew going into this season what he can do. But then he, there was a suspension, came back, played well, but then got injured. So seeing how he was out the rest of the season for a majority of the season and still in a boot, what do you think his chances are that he would go ahead and go to the draft, especially since I'm not sure he'll be able to, participate in the Combine?
I would say Anais Smith would be a more likely candidate to return. Now, if he comes out, he's going to have a lot of explaining to do to NFL general managers about his suspension, what originally he was arrested for by Texas A&M police and how it turned out. And then, of course, Jimbo Fisher lifted the suspension. One of the things scouts liked about him is he can play running back, he can play wide receiver. A lot of them look at him as a slot receiver. 5'10", 190, he looks like a slot receiver. He's got good hands. He can be a returner. But the problem is he's not healthy. He did not have the kind of season that they expected him to. And if he comes out, he would have to be able to work out. And if that injury keeps him from doing that before the draft in late April, that's going to hamper him, and he'd be more likely to be a low pick. So it depends on what his goals are. If he'd like to be drafted higher, he needs to stay in College Station.
Okay. All right. Well, I know it's a big weekend for the Texans. I'm sure you've been asked by every media outlet out there about Deshaun Watson returning for Cleveland to play against the Texans. And the Texans season looks a lot kind of like Texas A&M season has gone. What are your thoughts around Deshaun returning? I know it's a big hype about him coming back. He said he's excited to play in front of all of his Houston fans again, but especially the Cleveland Browns. What do you think leading up into this game about Deshaun's return?
there's a lot of intrigue about it nationally and locally. I don't sense there's a lot of excitement. And the reason is the Texans are so bad. They've like zapped the life out of NFL fans here because their offense is so pathetic. But Watson is playing for the first time since he played here on January 3rd of 2021. The Browns gave him $230 million guaranteed. They now have to get their money's worth. After this game, their schedule gets tougher, and something Watson's going to have to deal with. After playing his home games indoors here, playing in Jacksonville, Nashville, and indoors in Indianapolis, the rest of his season is played outdoors. You know, the Browns play outdoors on Lake Erie. The weather can be awful any time of the season. And then he plays outside of the division games. He's going to be playing outside in December and January. And he has not been a great cold weather quarterback, and he may never have statistics in Cleveland like he had in Houston because of where he plays right on the banks of Lake Erie where the wind blows constantly. So I think it's great to see him back as a player. A lot of people would never have the same opinion of him based on all his off-the-field issues that the NFL said he was guilty of and suspended him for 11 games, fined him a record $5 million, and made him undergo counseling, in which he did. So they lifted the suspension. Now he's back. Cleveland and Northeast Ohio are pumped about it, and I kind of think the Texans just want to get it out of the way because they got bigger problems.
Yeah, bigger fish to fry. I was listening to Brooks on Sports 610 radio this morning from the Chronicle, and he was saying, I guess, that 10 of the plaintiffs are going to be in a suite at the game on Sunday. That's interesting to me.
Tony Busby put it out early in the week that he was bringing in 10 of the accusers to sit in a suite with him. And, you know, Busby likes attention, and I'm thinking if it were me, and I have no clue what they've been through, I know what they say they've been through, I wouldn't want to be there in that atmosphere watching people cheer for him. You know, if they want to boo, fine, boo all you want, but I thought that was kind of strange based on the nature of the accusations. And if they boo, they certainly won't be the only ones. It's just too bad there won't be more Texans fans there to do it. And the ones who are there may be booing the Texans offense instead of when they leave the field, instead of Watson when he comes on the field.
That's funny. Well, things hopefully can only go up for the Texans like the Aggies as well. One former Aggie that will be playing on Sunday for Cleveland is Myles Garrett. You know, I guess good luck, Kyle Allen, right? What do you think about Myles Garrett going up against the Texans, and especially with their quarterback situation?
Kyle Allen played with Myles Garrett at A&M, and he was asked if he had a message for Garrett, and he said, yeah, take it easy on me. Yeah. And Garrett doesn't do that. He has 10 sacks. He's by far the best pass rusher on the Browns defense. It has been very disappointing. And with all the athletes and the high picks that they have not played to that level, which is one reason Cleveland is 4-7. You can't blame it on the quarterback, Jacoby Brissett, who did everything he could, but the defense has not stepped up. Now the defense is going to look real good against the Texans offense. People in Cleveland may go, wow, this defense has turned a corner. But the fact is they're going up against the worst offense in the league, the second worst scoring offense in the league, an offense that has 37 yards in the first half of the last two games. And the Browns are fast starters. The only quarter in which they've outscored opponents is the first, and they dominated, and I fully expect them to dominate in NRG Stadium.
Well, John, we appreciate it. Again, you can check John out at gallerysports.com. Listen to him on Sports 610 Radio. Well, we appreciate it, John.
It's my pleasure anytime, and gig 'em.
Last but certainly not least, Mark Passwaters gives us intel as to what he is hearing as far as the coaching staff goes, movements there, and then also the transfer portal.
This is going to be a little bit callous, but I wouldn't say any of them are huge losses at this point. Tunmis Adele could have been, but it's tough to say with a situation like that. You know, he played well in 2 games, but it was only 2 games. And those are the only 2 games he's played in 2 years. So what do you do? The rest of them, were either beaten out or just never got to a point where they were impact players. So I wouldn't say any of them are surprising. I would say that some of them might have been overlooked when we were thinking about this happening. But so far, when you look at 9 names, it's hardly damaging. And this is something that every program is going to have to deal with. I mean, Florida's expecting double-digit losses. Alabama may already be there. Texas lost 7 in a day. This is not something that is unique to A&M. So with that respect, I think we'll still see more names. I'm still waiting to see what happens with the suspended players. And then with the NFL draft, there are only 3 players really to watch, I think. It's Antonio Johnson, Devon Achane, and Layden Robinson. I think AJ's gone. There's honestly no reason for him to stay. He's a first-round draft pick. He could be the number 1 safety taken. You take a look at his skill set, the fact that he shut down Kayshon Boutte. He, as a nickel, went out there and shut down a guy who's a potential first-round draft pick against LSU. That's telling. He's been fantastic since he came back from his injury. It was like he felt like he had something to prove, and he did. Achane, I would tell him to stay just because, as we've said before, it's a running back heavy draft, and running backs are undervalued. And I've talked to some people that cover the league or are in the league, and while people like Achane, it's still not going to push him past a 3rd-round grade. And that's, frankly, I think it's ridiculous. He's a first-round talent, but nobody's going to take that.
That's exactly what Jamie McCoy said.
Yeah, I mean, Bijan Robinson is probably the only guy who legitimately has a shot at being a first-round draft pick because he's got the size, he's got the strength, he's got the speed, he can catch the football. Achane can do all those things, but he's smaller. And that condemns him in the eyes of these kooks, for lack of a better term. So I would put him, I still think he's going to go, but I would say it's probably 60-40.
Yeah.
And there's absolutely no reason whatsoever where Layden Robinson should go. He had a rough year. He was hurt the whole time. He knows that he's capable of better. And interior linemen, like running backs, are traditionally undervalued. So if you're not going to go out there and have a season where you knock it out of the park and you're a guard, you better come back.
Yeah.
So I expect him to return. And I think, those would be the only early entries that I could even fathom.
As far as the coaching staff goes, I mean, there was movement pretty much immediately right after A&M LSU and Coach Dickey being released. What are the rumblings? What are you hearing as far as an offensive coordinator goes? And with this offensive coordinator, will Jimbo hand over, the play calling?
Last question first. I don't think he has a choice. This has been established. Things got so bad this year with the offense that first, I think he recognizes it. Second, other people did recognize it for him. So if he wants to do the things that he wants to do at Texas A&M, then he's going to have to make some changes. And that means giving up the play calling and hiring an offensive coordinator. As for the coordinator possibilities, I still keep on hearing the same 3 names. Jeff Grimes at Baylor, Riley at TCU, Phil Longo at UNC. I've heard some people try to throw Dan Mullen into the equation, and that just, to me, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Mullen's now been out of the game 2 years. He has been a head coach for, 12 before that. Good long tenure at Mississippi State, then a couple of years at Florida.
Yeah.
So, schematically speaking, is he going to be willing to go back to being a number 2? And 2, is that something that A&M would really do, is run that kind of offense? Let's face it, one of the reasons he got fired at Florida was the offense wasn't working. So why would you want to go and do that again?
Right.
So, I keep on hearing those 3 guys, and, is there a possibility that there's another one? Yeah, I think they had some interest in Brian Hartline at Ohio State, but Cincinnati had interest in him for the head coaching job, and he turned it down flat. So, I don't think a guy's going to sit there and go, okay, I'm the offensive coordinator or the wide receivers coach at Ohio State, the offensive coordinator at Ohio State, and I'm going to leave and go to Texas A&M, and in the process turn down a Power 5 head coaching job in the process. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
I think that Ryan Day recognizes at Ohio State that Hartline is a big part of his success, and he was going to make darn sure that he wasn't going to leave, even if that meant throwing himself in front of the car on the way out. So I think that Hartline being a Buckeye and being well compensated now was enough to keep him there.
Yeah. Well, a lot of movement, and I know more will be revealed in the next few weeks, I'm sure. And then we've got, the early signing period coming, an early signing date. So a lot to keep up with. So guys, make sure and tune back in to Aggie. Thank you guys for tuning in this week to the Aggie F-Word Meaning Football podcast. Be sure and like it, share it, and definitely tune back in next week.